Is that a quarantine haircut?
That is. Jillian gave me that haircut yesterday.
I can't decide if you look way younger or way older.
Not sure. Probably way more handsome either way.
Yeah, you look like you're all dressed up and ready to go out, but unfortunately, there's nowhere to go.
No, I definitely had a mullet going before, so it's definitely an improvement. Is that good
Was
enough?
that
Wait.
was that Japan's first ever mullet?
No, I think they might have a mullet culture.
They
Probably have
probably
a
do.
an underground punk rock mullet culture somewhere, I'm
Yeah, but it
sure.
would be like the stylish mullet, not the I have a big truck mullet. You know.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, you're right. It would be a
So
very different.
are you in Jersey right now, or where are you?
Yes, I'm currently in Jersey. I came back to the States about just a little under 3 weeks ago, and I stayed in Philadelphia for the first couple weeks, just with in my lady's apartment, and then um, we figured after being there for 2 weeks, it was safe to come to my parents in Jersey, which has been nice because it's just a bigger house instead of being stuck in an apartment, and we can actually go outside and so it's a lot nicer. It was kind of a tough decision whether or not to come back from Japan as everything was getting more and more serious. But I figured like with everything being as hard as it is and not no, with the future being as uncertain as it is, it would be better to come back here and spend some time with family and with my girlfriend, and then just kind of see how things played out and see when I can get back to Tokyo.
Well, when you came, you could have gone back, right? Now you can't go back.
Right. Yeah. So and I knew that when I
Possibility.
left that was a huge, at best, a 50-50 chance that at some point they might close the borders of Japan to Americans. Even myself, who's there on a 3-year work visa, it seems to be difficult getting back. I am going to call the embassy and see like if there is something that can be done. So because I think they do under special circumstances. So I'm not really sure, but at the moment it stands that I can't enter Japan right now, which so we
Kind
just
of
kind of ride.
inconvenient where that's where you work.
Yeah, it's I have an apartment. That's where I live. That's where I work at the moment. That's where my apartment is. So I don't have I'm at my parents' house right now. I don't have a home base in the United States, so it's not like a lot of people that are over there working for a year and a half or a couple of years. They have a house wherever they live. If they're you know. So, but my only, other than staying with my girlfriend or with my parents, my house is in Japan. So,
So I don't know if you have much to say about this, but what's going on with the Olympics? So it gets postponed. I don't know if you're actually knowledgeable about this or if you're getting the news like everybody else is, but it gets postponed. Apparently, it's taking place next summer. Do you have any information about what's going on, especially as far as BMX is concerned?
yeah, I mean, that can be the frustrating part. Like, we don't necessarily get information all that sooner than the general public. You know, we're, I'm working for the organizing committee, so we're helping organize the event itself, but we don't have any say in when these things get
Yep.
canceled or if they get canceled or when they get rescheduled to. So just like everyone else, I'm kind of waiting to see. Like, it was actually kind of a little bit frustrating, just like for everyone else, where I'm kind of the middleman sometimes, where I'm communicating the information to the athletes or to the federations, and I'm waiting to hear the information from the uppers, and it's kind of like this feeling of responsibility without authority, where you're asking them what's happening, like what's going to happen, and they're asking you what's going to happen, and you're just like, I don't know, man. Like, so it can be a little frustrating sometimes, but I also understand, like, it's just a really unique situation that no one's ever dealt with. So I think trying to figure out what to do isn't always, and with as many people that are involved, it's not always easy or fast decisions. So I yeah.
So that was a really long way of saying you don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I know, or I assume the course got built because there is the test event coming up. Is the course there? Do you even know what's going on?
No, so the course was getting built for the test event, and unfortunately, it had just started getting built, and then everything got canceled and postponed, and it was just like halt, and like so it just like everything was in full motion, and then it was just like stop, everything stop, and then kind of had to regroup and figure out the next plan. So now everything's kind of been restored and kind of waiting to see what's next, see when
I
the
was kind of
schedule.
I was hoping the course would just be there for a year. So
Yeah, no. That's part of what we had to figure out, whether it should sit there for a year or not. But obviously, it's probably not good for a wood course to sit out in the weather for a year. So,
so you've been in Japan for quite a while now. When you come back to the United States, what's the first thing that you eat?
well, I mean, normally, well, actually, even in this case, Wawa is the first thing that I eat. So yeah, definitely. I actually did normally this time I haven't been able to eat a lot of the restaurants or the foods that I
Yeah,
would typically like to eat, but I did still manage to get Wawa when I got back. So I did have a meatball sub and some stuffed jalapeno pretzels. So
not bad. It's not quite cocoa curry, but
I
go
see
from
a lot of
Family Mart
I
to
see
Wawa.
I see a lot of mushrooms popping up on the screen, but I haven't had any of those since I've been back. So
Well, jalapenos and mushrooms are probably cousins, right? So if that's in the pretzels, you never know what you're going to get. Um, Before I start diving into these questions, we have a lot from some people that you know very well, and a lot from people you probably don't know. The only other question I had before we dive into that was, do you guys have any sort of update on the Uncovered series that you and Kaczynski were doing? I know it's probably whatever you had planned is probably at a standstill based on everything, but is there any talks or anything?
yeah, so it had kind of been on hold a little bit anyway. After we had did the first year really big with the three events, and then last year we were able to do an event in Tokyo, which all went really well. And then this year, Brian just had a baby, and I was super busy with work and the planning for the Olympics. So we had talked a couple times about, hey, what should we do? Maybe let's do something in the States. Maybe I can get back. But we hadn't pinned anything down, and then this whole pandemic thing started, and now it's obviously a wash at this point. So there's no plans to do anything in 2020. Who knows? We'll discuss again for 2021. It's something I would definitely like to keep going, and especially once we both have a little more time on our hands. But yeah, we're just there's nothing solid at the moment, but we'll see how it goes. But definitely something I'd like to keep alive. So
Good. I think Mad Mike also asked about that, so shout out to Mad Mike.
yeah.
Okay, we'll dive into some questions here. First and foremost, from Chris Doyle.
All
With the
right.
with the
Who?
Olymp-
Who's
with
that?
with the Olympics being postponed until 2021, does that mean another year of living in Japan? Does the job remain the same, or has there been any major changes?
Yeah, so it does mean, most likely it does mean being there until things are completed in 2021. That's not official yet. I haven't signed a contract yet for that. But unofficially, that should be the case. That I will be over there for another year, and yeah, I certainly look forward to that. I mean, it would be, after being over there for 2 years, I would hate to have to abandon the project and not get to see it through. So looking forward to, and I mean, yeah. So yeah, it looks that way.
Garrett Burns, somebody I think you might actually know, maybe. Uh,
Heard of them?
Many people complain about getting too old to ride and complain about sore body parts. That being said, you've been through the ringer with injuries. How do you feel physically after having such a heavy career of taking beatings on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean, of course, your body feels a little more beat up than it did when I was 20, especially because I'm not Garrett Burns, so I don't do as much yoga. I don't eat as healthy, and I drink a lot more whiskey than he does. So my body probably doesn't feel, but no, I think just generally, I think a positive mindset and just riding at the level that you feel comfortable at. I mean, I definitely, a couple years ago, kind of got to a phase where I don't want to necessarily push myself as hard as I used to, and I don't want to take the slams that I used to, but I still love to ride. And I think that's one thing that's amazing about being in Tokyo, is that there's so many interesting spots that part of it kind of keeps it really motivating and exciting, and not just trying the craziest things or just focusing on the progression, but just enjoying your bike and the adventure.
Lee Ramsdale wants to know, if you had to choose between Miss Pac-Man and poker, which would you choose?
I actually we were addicted to both of those games pretty heavily in the early 2000s. and we would have all night poker games regularly at that house in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. And right now, I actually really miss. I wish I could get the guys together and play poker. I was trying to figure out maybe a way to do that online. So if anybody knows like the right app or right thing where I could like invite all my friends to a poker game, let me know because that would be actually a lot of fun.
TJ Lavin wants to know, how gnarly was the jump over the rail in 28-mile-per-hour headwinds at the San Francisco X Games in '99?
Wow, what's up, TJ? Wow, that's a good one. That's a piece of history right there. One I bet not many people remember or saw. Um, but shit, what was the question exactly again though about
How
that?
gnarly was it? I guess you're supposed to say
Oh,
real gnarly.
yeah, no, I mean I was definitely sweating that one really hard. I don't know how. It's actually an interesting story because a lot of people obviously don't know the setup, but there was a really tall roll in that we were even when we just rolled into it for the first time, we were like kind of nervous to roll in it. And like the first couple times I rolled in, I like lost my stomach like the same way that you do on a roller coaster. And so that's like how gnarly it was that we were literally just testing the roll in. Like everyone like went to the side of the jumps the first time because like they just wanted to like get used to the roll in first. And then there was a lower roll in below it, and there was a rail that separated them. So like during my last run, I like gapped from the top roll in over the rail and into the lower roll in. And I don't remember all the dimensions, but I was definitely sweating it and it was pretty gnarly. But when I landed, I had so much speed that I overshot the first jump by like 100 miles and my run was basically finished. And
Doyle says you could have medaled, but you did the gap instead.
well, yeah, that okay. That's a good add to it because I always thought I kind of used to look back in that for two ways. I was like, oh, well, part of that makes me feel cool because like that's my style. Like I'm a street rider, and I just did like I found something cool, a setup, and I did that instead of just kind of taking the cheap way and getting the easy medal or whatever. But I also looked back on that like the wind was really bad that year, like TJ said. And so guys were getting like doing really well with pretty basic runs. So I kind of looked at that like my chance, like oh, I would always look back and say, oh, that was my one chance to get an X Games medal, and I like blew it by doing this like street gap on the dirt rolling. So when they put street in the X Games, like probably like 10 years later, and I was able to get a medal, that was kind of cool because I kind of got that chance again, and I still did the cool gap, so I got it both
Win-win.
ways.
You just didn't get that Schwinn podium bonus.
Exactly.
Shout out to UFC fighter Rick Glenn. He's in here watching. Great guy.
Cool.
Nick No Bullshit, I believe that is Nick Noble from NorCal, says, can we get a Van Homan video in the works?
Yeah, I would like to work on something with it's definitely more difficult with work and things like that, but there's a really good scene over there and there's some really good spots. So, not anything groundbreaking, but I really would love to put together something with just some interesting Japan spots. So hopefully I'll be able to get out with the crew over there and film some clips and put a little something together within the year or whatever. So.
I don't think people realize how busy you actually are over there. I certainly didn't. I've been over there a few times with you, and I'm like, yeah, it's BMX stuff, so we'll just go ride every day. It's kind of your job, right? And you're like, no, I get up at 7 every morning and go to work.
Yeah, no, that's what a lot of people don't get. It is like a very like, it's like a regular like 9 to 5 office job. Like they call it a salary man. So like you're just over there like earning the salary. So it's a great gig because it's obviously it's based around something I love, which is BMX, and it's based around being able to something on that big of a stage, make it as good as possible. And yeah, it's a real job. It's a real 9 to 5 office job.
I learned that the hard way, where I go over there with no plans and I'm just kind of sitting in the apartment all day. Well,
No, we made it work though. We made it
no,
work.
we did. Have to do that again, especially with the extended tenure over there. This is probably the best
See,
place.
Lee Ramsdale is in the house. I just answered your question about Pac-Man and poker, Lee. I hope you heard it.
Lee can come into this Instagram live, but not text me back. Rubio rides BMX. This is probably the best question you're going to get asked. If somebody offered you $10,000 right now to go back and tow up the Kona Gap, would you do it? And if so, he's got $1,200 on it.
Wow.
10 grand.
I'd be very tempted. I'd be very tempted, but I don't know if I could pedal that fast anymore. So it might not it might not go well.
He didn't
Um,
specify if you had to successfully do it or not. I assume you do.
if what?
He didn't specify if you had to successfully do it. He just said go back
Mm,
and tailwhip it. So, but I assume you got to pull it.
yeah, for 10 grand, I might have to plan a trip. It's possible. It's possible.
So that's a solid maybe. How about Van Homan before having a career in Japan? Broke Van Homan. Would he do it?
Yeah, yeah, give me a few more months for this economy to collapse and then have this conversation again, and we'll
that
be putting on
that
the
ten's gonna
big
turn to
the
three
big
real
year.
fast. At David the Leviathan wants to know how hard is it to be objective when judging your friends?
Um, well, I think that is an interesting question because I think that brings up 2 points. One, um, I think as a judge, it's very important to be able to separate what might be your favorite rider from what you think is the best riding. You know, that sometimes I watch a run and it might be my favorite run of the day personally, but I have to weigh a lot of factors and it's not what I'm going to give the best score, if that makes sense, because you got to calculate in, just without getting too in detail, you got to assess all factors. And another thing that I think is an interesting point is I think at this stage in time, it's pretty rare that I am judging actual friends. Of course, I know most of the people. I'm friendly with most of the people, but as far as being close friends, um, a lot of the people competing, there's very few people competing now that I'm judging that I like consider like close friends.
There's
So I
there's
think
there's
that's
a pretty big age gap in there. Most of these guys are early 20s,
yeah.
or late 30s, or how old are you now?
So I'm 40 years old, 40 years
Sucks.
old. So I think that's a really good thing as well because, um, when it's sometimes you can, I actually worry more honestly about sometimes when people bring in judges and they're like, oh, this person knows that person or that person. In a lot of cases, I worry more about reverse bias than I do bias. Like I worry that a judge is going to be like, if they're friends with someone and they're actually an honest person, I worry that they're going to be too hard on their friend as opposed to being like giving their friend free points, which is also an issue. So I don't know. I think it's like I said, I think I'm able to separate those things generally. And I also think that as things are getting more serious, it's good to try to have people that aren't super connected or close. So,
No, I agree, and I know exactly what you're saying. I think you hit the nail on the head with the comment about your
and,
favorite
and
writing
Doyle,
versus the best writing. I think that all boils down to that.
so I saw Doyle putting a funny story. I think this is I saw his comments popping up. And this story always makes me laugh because obviously me and Chris, like we're friends and we like kind of came up around the same time. And just a few years back, kind of, I think Chris thought his days of being on the podium were kind of over, and he ended up getting third place, which congratulations, deserved. But Chris is riding across the parking lot, and he's like, "Hey Van, thanks," and I was like, "Don't thank me, I gave you fifth." Chris always, I don't know if that's funny to everyone, but we always get a kick out of that story. So sorry, Chris.
Should have been a
Now I
silver.
feel awkward.
Should have been a
I
silver.
feel it's fifth. It was a fifth place run. I'm sorry, but it's a fifth place run.
Okay, here's one I wasn't very familiar with, but maybe you are. Spongeworthy in the Vital BMX forum wants to know how much vending machine cream corn you eat in Japan. He says he ate a lot. I spent quite a bit
Vending
of time,
machine cream corn.
I spent quite a bit of time in Japan. I've never had that. Are you
No,
familiar
I've
with what he's
never.
talking about?
No, I've never seen the vending machine cream corn. I've definitely had a many Family Mart egg salad sandwiches.
Same.
Um, but yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'll have to look for the cream corn.
We got Adam Mexican or Adam Mexican. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but that's his name, so that's a proper noun. In the Vital BMX forum, wants to know if you would ever put front brakes on. Have you ever ridden front brakes?
No, I've never actually ridden front brakes on my bike. I remember playing around on Dave Asato's bike on a Road Fools years ago and doing a few nose picks and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I don't really see myself putting front brakes on my bike permanently, but and anything to play around on. It's a good time, but I don't really see my setup changing. Kind of, I'm back to the straight cable, still 2 metal pegs, and probably going to stay that way for the most part.
Salty old man.
Yeah, exactly.
At TomPast199 on Instagram wants to know, with the recent passing of Kenny Rogers, can we get a Van Homan rendition of The Gambler?
So if you come to Tokyo, I frequent the karaoke bars over there. So I invite you to come to Tokyo, and I'll give you an up front and center show.
But it involves an
Anytime.
international trip to a country we can't go to right now.
Exactly. As soon as it's safe to put my mouth next to a microphone again, I will be there.
At Austin Hardy, I assume that's Austin Hardy, wants to know, Mira's Animal House, roughly 2006. You learned flips one day when you were in town. We worked on them together, and after a few in the foam, you fired one out first go. I've got the footage stored away somewhere. Did you ever do any flips after that?
Yeah, I've done a handful of flips. I've done them mostly just on resis. I remember doing just a few years ago. I hadn't even ever done one on a real box jump, and it was like who were we with? Like Marin Rantes and like Pokey, like Eirik Riziv, like some of the guys that you might expect to see in the Olympics, or some of the top, like, you know, a lot of guys that do all the crazy flip whip stuff and all that thing. And I was doing demos with these guys, and I'm just doing like no footed cans and turn downs while they're doing like flip triple whips and things. And then during like the last demo, I had like normally done the same run, and then this one I just did a circle back around, and they're all like, "Oh, what is he doing?" And I flipped the box for them, and they all went crazy. So it was a sketchy one's case, foot down, the whole works, but we got it done.
Do you remember learning them at Mira's?
I do vaguely. It was a while ago. I think Lee was there as well. Lee, you were there.
If he was
That was
there,
the first time I'd ever done.
I assume. How about this? We got a question from Mike Aitken.
What's up, Mike?
That's exciting, right? I'm excited.
Yeah. Miss you, Mike.
What does a typical day consist of in Japan? A typical work day consist of in Japan?
So definitely, like I said, it's a 9 to 5 like office job. So, and there's a lot of meetings. So we're just generally planning the logistics of the event. So there's just a million details that you might not ever think of, you know, from, you know, we got to think about like the flows, like the way people are going to move through the event. You know, you got to think about where a camera guy is going to be, where a speaker is going to be, where it might be in the way. You got to think about how the course matches up with the height of the grandstand. There's just like, the list goes on and on and on. What time the sandwiches need to be there, what time the, you know, so there's a laundry list of things. So there's just a lot of meetings, which can be really difficult as well, because the meetings are typically in Japanese. So I have some good guys on my team now that, like, when I first got there, I was pretty lost because there wasn't a whole lot of English speaking people around me. Now I have like a good crew of guys working with me on a daily basis. And then of course, more serious meetings, we have an actual interpreter and things like that. But yeah, honestly, just a lot of meetings and like logistical type planning. It's just, without going overly into it, there's just a lot of small details that you never think about until you're planning something this big. So
I think it's worth noting that every morning you ride your BMX bike to and from the office as well, right?
I do. I ride my bike every day. Yep, every day.
In business clothing.
Yeah, yeah, yes, business attire.
Rick Glenn wants to know if you visited any of the caves in Japan.
Caves? No, I have not.
Yeah, I'm not aware of Japanese caves.
Yeah, fill me in. I'm interested to explore more. So that's one thing I'd like to. It's kind of difficult sometimes because I've done a fair bit of visiting other cities and making sure to ride a lot of spots, but it does become challenging because you are working so much, and then when you do have time off, you want to see family or you want to things like that. So it's but I definitely happy to have another year there and want to make the most of being able to see as much as possible if we can actually travel.
It says war refugee type caves.
Sounds
interesting.
Where at?
Well, we'll circle back with this. Rick, okay. We're going to hit you up for information about this. I assume you know something we don't. 1800 Cooper wants to know, what was the age you had the most fun riding BMX?
question. Because I've always enjoyed riding, of course, but I actually think like my 30s were pretty fun. Obviously as a kid you enjoy it, but I think in my 30s I was at a point where I was really comfortable with where I was at as a rider, and I was still like riding really hard, but I didn't put any pressure on myself other than what it was that I wanted to do or what I wanted to produce, and I kind of had like the freedom to travel wherever so I felt like every project I was working on in my like early 30s was my project, and I was doing it my way. And if I wanted to do something scary, I did something scary, but it wasn't like, I feel like at every other point in my life there was some kind of pressure. Like when I was racing, it's like, all right, you're pressured to win, and then like you become like a young pro and you're like, okay, you're pressured to do good in these contests, and then you put out a video part, and then it's like, okay, now every trip you go on you're pressured to get the hammer clip. And I feel like by the time I got to my 30s, it was all for me. I was like still riding professionally, but the riding I was content. So yeah.
That's a good answer, and that makes sense. You're not doing stuff you don't want to do. It's you're no longer the young man on the podium. On the totem pole. You earn your spot, and you're doing things your way. Benny B. Jammin, excuse me, wants to know what your favorite Road Fools was.
I guess Road Fools Europe would probably be my favorite. Just a really good crew and getting to go places I'd never been to. So yeah, that was definitely an exciting adventure. Just getting to see Ruben do some of the ridiculous things he did, getting to see Fids and Leland high on mushrooms, like playing around on the bus and rolling around on the bus laughing. So yeah, it was probably Road Fools Europe. That was before.
Go ahead.
This is something that makes you feel old, like, because I traveled Europe before the Euro, so we had to exchange money in like every country we went to. So
you are 40. What can I say?
Yeah.
Adam Banton wants to know if you have any Mean Street frames left.
I do have one right out in my dad's shed. Should I walk you guys out there?
Brand new or used?
Brand new one.
Is that the only one?
Only one I have. I'm sure there's some floating around out there, but
that's exciting.
I have one out there. Yeah.
I think this is a really interesting one here from at Eric Garza BMX. He just wants to know what your current status with your sponsors are. I know you're still involved with a lot of brands, but you're not exactly acting as a pro rider the way you did for much of your career. So where do you currently stand with what brands do you represent right now, and which brands, are you literally going out and doing work for still?
Yeah, no, I still ride. I ride for Fit, and I think that's a lifelong relationship. Yep. At this point. They've been taking care of me almost since the beginning of Fit, and I really believe in what Chris does with Fit and S&M, and there's no reason to ride another bike ever for me. So it's like you said, I don't consider myself a pro BMXer anymore. Last year, I feel like 2019 were the first time where I kind of said to myself, like, whoa, I used to be a pro BMXer. But I definitely still get some support from Fit and some support from G Sport and Duo. So of course things have changed as far as like that being the way that I make a living. But I'm still riding my bike, and if there's anything I can do to help those brands, I'm going to do it. And they've always shown their support for me and their products I believe in, and people I believe in. So yeah, it's kind of, I feel really lucky for it to transition that way, actually. Like a lot of people end on bitter terms with sponsors, and they feel like they were slighted, and I feel like it couldn't have happened in a better way. So yeah, those brands that yeah.
So we got Fit, G Sport, and Duo were the ones you're repping?
Yeah. Yep.
Solid lineup there. I believe it's BMX Highlights continuously asks if you got paid to be in a Slim Jim commercial.
I did. I did get paid. That was actually that was pretty amazing, because that was like a crash that was in my props interview. And then somehow they saw the footage, like Slim Jim saw the footage, and they contacted props and wanted to buy the footage. Ended up making it was actually crazy money, because it was like well after the crash too, so I didn't even have to do anything, and I think I ended up making like $15,000 from that commercial. Yeah, it was crazy. Like I just kept getting like royalty checks for the commercial, and it added up to something insane. Like at one point I thought the checks were done and I had moved, and like one day this like giant envelope came, and it was just like all these checks that had been going to the wrong addresses that wrong address that added up to like $5,000.
Wow.
So yeah,
Did you get any
Garrett
free
says,
Slim Jims?
what part are you looking for, Garrett? The part where are you talking about the crash itself? He's saying tell the unedited story. I don't know.
Was it the ice pick loop out crash?
Yeah, so I like got my full butthole. So like I thought I was gonna shit my pants like right on the field there, and I just relaxed. I just released everything. I was fully willing to just like let myself. It hurt so bad, but nothing came out. And then I'm like standing in the middle of the field with my pants down, like full butthole, like with like Losi and I think Glenn Milligan standing like 30 feet away, and I'm like, "Am I all right, man? Do I need to go to the hospital?" And they're like, "I don't know, man. Yeah, maybe we should go." Pretty personal events.
Was it worth it? After all the Slim Jim money came in, was it worth it?
Yeah, I mean, after the Slim Jim money came, if I could do the same thing and know I didn't get hurt, I might. That's another $10,000-15,000 like proposition, like the Kona gap. You know, I would have to debate that.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty solid investment right there. But you know, you gotta grow up sometime.
Yeah.
Garrett says that's how you get some attention.
Bloody.
Those are the questions I had pulled aside. Anything else you want to add to this before we shut this beast down? Oh, the caves in Japan are in Okinawa that he was talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would love to go to Okinawa. But I haven't had
awesome.
a chance. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to make it there, unfortunately, yet. So hopefully, and that makes sense if they're war refugee things as well. Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully, I will make it there at some point. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I mean I don't really have anything too intense to add. I just trying to ride this Corona thing out like everyone else. Like I said, kind of just once it's safe to go back to Japan, I'm going to head back there. For now, I'm just hanging out in Jersey. I built a launch ramp yesterday to my parents' backyard to kind of entertain myself. If I get too bored, maybe I'll start digging it back up like it was when I was 15 years old and build some jumps.
That's reasonable.
But yeah,
we got a bonus question because it's Scotty Kramer's dad, Big Scott.
Okay.
He wants to know if you're going to try to go to Swamp Fest in October.
I would love to. I haven't missed the Swamp Fest yet. However, I don't know if I'll be able to make it with all this time being back in the States. If things actually get better and I can actually be back in Japan working, it might be tough for me to get away again this year. So I'd love to, but unfortunately this year it's probably unlikely that I can make it. But I recommend everyone to go because Swamp Fest is definitely one of the best events of the year. And I'm bummed that I'll have to miss it for my first time this year, most likely.
That was a very honest answer. You could have gone with the, I'll definitely be there, and at the last minute been like, oh, no, sorry, guys.
Yeah, I wish I could, but this year it's probably not likely.
All right. Well, anything else you want to add here? You good to get things rolling and get back to doing nothing?
Yeah, I'm going to, yeah, exactly that. I'm going to pour myself a whiskey.
Are you?
Up here. Yeah, I haven't had it. I haven't actually had many drinks at all since I've been in this quarantine, which I think is the opposite of most people. But I think I just haven't. I've only drank about maybe 2 drinks in 3 weeks, I think. So that's
Have you converted to Japanese whiskey entirely?
No, I don't know where to get Japanese. Although, yes, like because I used to be a Jameson guy, and I have a bottle of Jameson right now. And when I drank it, it tastes super sweet to me now. So I might be making changes in the near future to my whiskey of choice. So
that's a big move.
Yeah, over there I drink Suntory, so I just drink. I drink in Japan. I drink Suntory. Make it Suntory time.
I think that's a good thing to end on. So cheers, make it Suntory time. Thank you, Van.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks everybody for joining in. Good night. Good luck.
Enjoy that whiskey. Have a good one. Bye, everybody.